find out. Don Brown joining me now. He ran for Senate in North Carolina. He's also a former Navy JAG officer and a former federal prosecutor. That's why we need a legal side of this. Don, good morning.
Good morning to you, Steve. Good to be with you this morning.
Now, one of the things that's floating around on social media is that there are, and it's just a rumor, I will put it out there, it is a rumor that Donald Trump will declare both Senators Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff of Georgia as being illegitimate senators. Now, there's a process where the Senate could declare a seat vacant or even remove a senator, but that takes 2/3 of the vote of the United States Senate. Of course, the Democrats would never support that. So then I turned to Georgia law. I'm not familiar with Georgia law. I've been making a lot of phone calls, and there are mechanisms to remove somebody if it's proven that the election was rigged and that they were not legitimately elected. What are your thoughts as you see these stories start to come out?
Well, first of all, I was very involved in working Georgia during the 2020, in the aftermath of the 2020 election scam, as I call it. Georgia was one of the hottest messes in the country. There were literally thousands upon thousands of illegitimate votes that were counted that should never have been counted. Biden ostensibly won by about 11,000 votes. I don't believe that for a second. There was massive fraud in DeKalb County and Fulton County. And if you look at even the litigation over the ballot marking device machines, there was a case called Curling versus Rafflesberger. It was overheard by a Democrat judge, Amy Totenberg, and that case was filed 2 years or so before the 2020 elections. And Judge Totenberg, at the end of the case, found that the systems were unreliable, could be easily manipulated, and ordered the Secretary of State, Brad Rafflesberger at the time, and the company to come up with something more reliable. She did not grant the plaintiff's request of using paper ballots. But I believe that I don't believe for a second that, first of all, that Biden won Georgia, and if Biden did not win Georgia, I have a tough time believing those two clowns that are currently occupying the Senate seats in Georgia did. So it'll be interesting what the president says. I think the evidence is there, and I'm glad that we're getting to the bottom of it. At least, hopefully, we'll know Thursday night.
Yeah, nobody believes that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. Democrats don't even believe that Joe Biden got millions more votes than any other candidate in history from either party, including their own beloved Barack Obama. Nobody believes that. Now, let me ask you about Brad Raffensperger. People in Georgia, Republicans, conservatives, do not like him, think he's trying to protect his own reputation. What is your take on Brad Raffensperger? Because he is a Republican, and yet he seems to have tried to thwart every effort to investigate what really happened.
Well, Raffensperger is, of course, the Georgia Secretary of State, and Brian Kemp was the Secretary of State before him. Georgia is the only state in the country that has dominion in every county. That dominion was brought in by Brian Kemp when he was Secretary of State, and Brian's chief of staff, if I've got this right, became the marketing director for Dominion. And if you go back to the history of the 2020 election in Georgia, there was that famous phone call when Trump was simply asking what was happening. Something wasn't right. He was talking to Raffensperger. Somebody leaked that call. But between the two of them, Kemp did not call the Georgia legislature in the special session. And part of the reason that Raffensperger is no longer going to be Secretary of State of Georgia is people just don't trust him down there. And a lot of it has to do with the perception of a lack of election integrity. When you look at the so-called investigation that went on in Georgia, you remember the famous video from the State Farm Arena where the Republican observers leave, and the next thing you know, the Democrats start pulling ballots out and start counting them. And Raffensperger says, no, there's nothing to see here. Nobody believes there's nothing to see here. You don't just do that. You send your Republican observers home, say, we'll start counting in the morning, and then we have them red hot on video pulling boxes of ballots out, and Raffensperger tries to explain that away. There's a feeling in Georgia, I believe, and I don't live in Georgia, I live next door in North Carolina, but there's a feeling that he has closed his eyes to a lot of things for a number of unknown reasons when it comes to preserving election integrity in Georgia, right. And hence he was defeated. So good for
200 FBI agents on the ground there, we're told. 200 FBI agents that have been going through this material, and they're also declassifying information at the federal level, so this could be very important. Now, here's something that has been in the ether, if you will. The Chinese Communist Party infiltrated as many as 18 states' databases, voting databases. If this turns to be true, and I'm I'm led to believe that one of those states might be Alaska. How does Lisa Murkowski vote against the Save Act if she finds out that the Chinese Communist Party was able to access voter data registration and so forth in her state? This could be a game changer for the Save America Act, potentially. Your thoughts?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, Murkowski is one of those that's got to get off the fence, and the Republican leadership in the Senate, including John Thune, they talk out of both ends of their mouth. They say they want the Save Act, but they're not willing to modify the filibuster to get the Save Act passed. So you can't have it both ways. The fact of the matter is, some of them don't want it. Why don't they want it? That's the big question. Are they in on the game? It makes zero sense at all. The interesting thing, Steve, when you talk about the Save Act, this is one of those very few issues which most Americans actually agree on across party lines. The last I heard, it was like 85%. I don't know what the numbers are today, but it just makes all the common sense in the world. If you've got to show an ID to get on an airplane, you got to show an ID to go in the liquor store. Not that I would go there, but you got to show an ID to buy a gun or whatever else, but you don't have to show an ID to vote. It makes no sense at all. So whatever comes out of Thursday night, I hope it will put pressure on some of these Republican senators who've been on the fence, like Murkowski and others, to get off the fence and let's get this done. Do it for Lindsey Graham, if nothing else. I mean, get it done.
Yeah. Lindsey Graham was the biggest champion for the Save Act. In fact, he had told the president in the last few days that he had found a path forward on the Save Act. Losing him, a big loss, but those still there should be able to get this done. Meanwhile, I've got to ask, where is Mitch McConnell? The proof of life photo that was sent out has been pretty conclusively shown to be a photo from 2023. We have no proof of life or whatever his condition is of Mitch McConnell. The people of the state of Kentucky should be demanding that they have representation in the U.S. Senate. Your thoughts?
Well, absolutely. The Republicans have a precarious majority anyway. McConnell, of all people, who spent all those years as a Senate majority leader, should not be putting his own party in jeopardy and not showing up. If he's not capable of proceeding, then let's find another Republican that can proceed. But the people of Kentucky deserve to know the health of their status of their senior senator. I'm not sure what Kentucky law requires in terms of if McConnell were to step down, but folks in Kentucky and the people of America deserve to know because of the precarious, very small majority we're hanging on by a thread in the Senate right now. And nothing makes sense. That photo appears to be either doctored or old, and we still don't have, as you say, proof of life as to what the senator's current situation really is, and it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Don Brown, I'm going to put you on the schedule for Friday because I'm very curious about what gets said Thursday night at 9 p.m. by the president and the 2020 elections. We'll keep a close eye on it. Don, thank you for being here this morning.
Thanks, Steve. See you Friday. Appreciate you.
All right.